Hiya, I'm a Zamen, and last time on Persona, the party gained a new member. This dude named Desmond, and learned about the nature of the dungeons that appear every month. According to the sorrowful but hopeful aspect of the world, the dungeons are formed by humans who have the potential to remake the world. These humans use their potential in conjunction with a demon that lets them borrow their power, and together the pair then set about bringing about a new world. A world that is first distorted by the emotions of the human. However, more importantly, the party no longer works for the masked persona user Jester, and has discovered the identity of the other masked persona user, Q. It turns out Q is none other than Skye, the party's good friend and fellow doormate. She disappeared at the end of the November Gula dance, but promised to explain everything on Monday, December 1st, which is now. Because November 29th and 30th, the party was stuck in their dorms talking to each other and building their stats, since the extreme Halloween hailstorm kept them cooped up inside. Now, on December 1st, school is cancelled due to several feet of snow, and early in the morning, the party get a text from Skye, who tells them to meet her at the train station as soon as possible. The party quickly arrived, with Aki being especially spirited, since he literally started dating Skye less than a week ago. Here, Skye greets them, taking them into the Velvet Room. The party has previously used this mysterious blue zone, but mainly for item fusion. As they approach the door, Skye materializes a blue key in her hand and turns a non-existent lock, opening the door and ushering the party into the Velvet Station, a full-blown train station where Igor stands as the Ticketmaster and Maritz is a mechanic, which would explain how she's so handy with creating the various item fusions the party has made. Here, in this place without time, the party start grilling Skye. Might I ask, what's the purpose of this gesture? Why reveal your secret lair to us? I said I would explain everything, and this is the first thing. This place, the Velvet Room, it's how I've gotten stronger. This place lets me improve myself, and you guys deserve the same. We're on the same side. I would hope, at least. We both go into domains, well, you guys call them dungeons, and we both want to stop whatever's going on with the world and Jester, right?
Yeah, pretty
I
much.
think so.
Is that what this is for?
That stands to reason, yes. Good. That means there's no reason for me to hide my identity. We can, like, work together and junk, right?
Yes.
Actually, I have to ask, why the mask? You know us, and, well, where'd it come from? Were you wearing that at the start, or did you start wearing it when we went into dungeoning for the first time, or? Oh, and where did you get your persona? We got ours back in September. It is only fair you know. So, I got my powers back in August. I was in a summer program and dorming at the dorms. In that program, I made a friend. In the gymnasium, actually. My first friend, Alice. We went to a maintenance room to get a mop or something. But as soon as we stepped in, the ground vanished. And next thing I knew, we were falling into Candyland. Alice and I were surrounded by demons. And before we died, you got your persona. Alice tried, but that angel with black wings, he showed up and cast a spell on her, one that stopped her from awakening her persona. He called it a test, and then he left, so I was the only one who could fight.
I haven't met an Alice.
You won't. I was weak, and Alice got captured by the domains, by the dungeon's demon, Jezebel. Navigating the dungeon wasn't easy, and it was exhausting, so it took me a lot of days across a lot of trips. And it didn't help that I'm pretty clueless at exploring, so it wasn't until the end of August that I finally made it to Jezebel's chamber. But by that point, I was too late. Alice was already dead, and Jezebel's host, the human who was working with her, she was already gone, merged with the demon. Interesting. Just like what happened with the principal. We slew his demonic form at the end of September, and had no opportunity to save him for interrogation like with Noah or Nathan. I never figured out who created the domain, and I failed Alice. For that reason, I've done my best to prevent other people from going to the other world. Copadon and Leon almost got personas, but I managed to avoid that because I don't want that to happen again. I thought if someone else went in, then the angel would show up again and would set me up for failure. So I had to do it alone. And the mask, its origin? Well, that's because of the other persona user, Jester. I have no idea who he is, but he has to hide his identity. And in my mind, that must mean he's like a public figure or something. So it'd be dangerous if he found out who I was. Especially with that uber cracked persona of his. And, well, then I just kind of kept wearing it because I felt really strong and really cool. And then when you guys showed up, it just made sense because I didn't want to get you involved, but each time you guys beat me to the boss of the dungeon. Which brings us to now, where I I hope we can be partners. Like for real, for real. Guys, any objections? No? Perfect. Alright, then we just got a whole lot stronger. And I guess if you don't have any other questions, then we can... Hey, so... Why do you get a whole station, but we were stuck in a single train cart that could barely fit Igor's table? I can answer that one. My esteemed guest holds a unique power known as the Wild Card. It's the source of their ability to wield multiple personas. For that reason, they are my true guest. So, does that make us stowaways, or, like, what are we? A special exemption courtesy of my master. For it is necessary, as we, for all intents and purposes, are off the intended path. You won't elaborate any further, will you? No, not at all. And with that, this adventure into the Velvet Station came to an end. Though Skye did show up how she fuses personas, and it was a bit violent. After that demonstration, the party returned to their dorms where Aki and Desmond worked out together, establishing a bit more connection, while Felicia and Stallion ended up building their guts by marathoning a few arcs of Featherman Legends of M, to which they both begrudgingly agreed that it was pretty mid, much to Skye's agony. But down the hall from these ordinary teen things, Leonidas was creating life, which will need a bit of backstory. I, once upon a time ago, mentioned a Roomba that had a gun taped onto it. The Doomba, as it was known. Since late October, Leo has been working on a project to create life. Create a fully independent artificial creation, an android, the natural evolution of the Doomba. And that's why Leo took brain scans in the last episode. So with all his work complete, Leo creates the super fighting robot, well, android, Ezri. Going forward, she will assist the party when they go dungeoning with an assortment of flamethrowers, rockets, and gun swords. Gwards. As a character, she represents the Aeon Arcana because overlap with the mainline games. Like the toaster. That my previous award-winning video was based on. As a character, Ezri is rather quiet, unknowable about a lot of things, and has access to Google. She's fun in a weird sort of way, but for the time being isn't particularly important. Just know that Leonidas is calling some men in black, something about 1,000,000 or something like that. Which brings an end to December 1st and takes us to December 2nd, where a new area was unlocked for the players, the Cathedral District, basically a big church next to a little park, where a few new activities were introduced, specifically Big Chess. Leo and Felicia liked the area actually, as here they encountered Verlyn, a student from the town's other high school. The duo found the girl playing a game of chess by herself, moving the pieces and then spending 10 seconds to walk to the other side of the board. Wonder where I got that idea from. The sight was somewhat pitiable, so the pair walked over and introduced themselves, and quickly it devolved into Leo and Verlyn bullying Felicia for not knowing a thing about chess. But that did lead to the establishment of the Magician Arcana. Elsewhere on the same day, Desmond and Aki were out for a run together when they came across a secret map. Basically, their players said, I want to go over there, and I was like, OMG, I have a map for that! They were running on the edge of a little forest and came across a motorcycle. Naturally, the boys started poking and prodding it against their better judgments, which led to them then being accosted by the bike's owner, a college research student named Mira. She told the pair off for their behavior, which was deserved as Desmond was already on the bike trying to figure out how to hotwire it in real time. Quickly, they both apologized and were then subsequently roped into helping Mira with her research. She was looking into mysterious alien radio waves that were coming from the forest. She also revealed herself to be a professional homeless person, as she was a Giga Chad and spent all her money on motorcycle upkeep. And that then established the Chariot Arcana. Though, for some reason in this encounter, Aki gave Mira the keys to the airport hangar so she could crash there if she ever wanted to. He literally just met this woman. But, whatever. Anyway, it just led to some setup for future shenanigans that involved a motorcycle. The next day, more normal things happened. The cast went to school, with Stallion being put in charge of showing Ezri around and introducing her to human things like walking her leg. After school, Felicia spent time with Officer Amelia, who she had been chatting with more and more regularly, as Amelia was the dorm's police chaperone. During conversation, Amelia revealed that she would be stepping away from her job for a few days to de-stress and relax. She was getting rather frustrated with her lack of relevance and ability to contribute to any of the disappearances or unsolved murders in the city of Downpour. Hearing this, Felicia offered to introduce Amelia to a great restaurant on Thursday nights, and Amelia, knowing Felicia was rich, agreed to attend, thinking it might end up being fun. Meanwhile, Felicia panicked. As that occurred, Aki then spent some time chatting with Mira and looking for more aliens in the woods. Leo took Ezri back from Stallion and took her to go meet Verlyn, where they played a few rounds of chess. Desmond, he was at the swim club broing it out with his guy Cameron. Stallion then went to go see Old Man Winchester, but he wasn't there. This was a break from his schedule, and that was rather concerning. So instead, Stallion went to go hang out with Aki's girlfriend, preventing Aki from doing so. Night swung around, and Aki, Desmond, and Skye went to go see a late-night horror movie marathon. Meanwhile, Felicia was panicking and trying to figure out how to plan a Thursday night dinner with Amelia, as she was now convinced it was a date. Because in the intervening months, Felicia had fallen for the woman in uniform who was capable of cruelty. Leo, meanwhile, was conducting a few experiments on the luck locust that the party had acquired from Noah's dungeon a month ago, trying to determine how these creatures might be used to create a dungeon. But all he ends up accomplishing this night is creating a signal. Leaving Stallion alone, in the dorm, Stallion realized something. The usual police chaperone, Amelia, hadn't come in to check on them, and that was a bit strange. He could also hear the sound of the water running in the bathroom, which is strange because, well, the party's gone, and Leo doesn't use the bathroom. Naturally, he went to go shut it off and nearly tripped over a few bottles that rolled out from under a stall, discovering a barely conscious Detective Aaron Sheffield. He had drunk himself to such a dismal state. Acting quickly, Stallion picked the man up and called upon his personal driver, Jeeves, to take them to a hospital, where Aaron had his stomach pumped, or whatever it is they do to people at hospitals. Throughout the process, Stallion decided to stay until family or Aaron's friends arrived so he could explain to them what happened. But, morning came first, and Stallion was then called into Aaron's room to speak with him. Naturally, Aaron thanked the young man for his kindness. In this situation, Stallion, usually the ever-confident and talkative, was mostly silent. He didn't know how to act and clumsily asked how exactly this happened, causing Aaron to explain that he had to make some tough decisions in the near future, which were weighing on him, so he ended up drinking. But he'll bounce back again, he assured. Stallion then asked if this kind of thing happened often. Aaron replied, it wasn't uncommon. If anything, he expected it to get worse. And that seemed to strike at something within Stallion, as he spoke up with more fervor. You're just gonna accept that? No realization, no plan how to handle it? Just, I tried nothing and I'm all out of ideas? Better throw myself down a pit where I can rot? Hell, maybe I'll even dig further just cuz. I can't do that. I can't afford to reflect on this. I won't. Well, why not, detective? Solve that. Because if I do that, then I'd have to kill a bunch of kids. It's got nothing to do with recovery. The more I think about it, the more reasonable it becomes. What the f*** are you talking about? The other world. All that crap with the personas. Jester. That's me. I'm Jester. What's the point of a secret identity if you're just gonna tell? Why are you telling? Oh, you're about to kill me, aren't you? No, I won't. That's the last thing I want to do. Because the more I think about it, that's the issue. When I think about it, it becomes easy to justify. It's an easy way to stop the insane mask. It sickens me to my very core. I don't want to think about it. I don't want it to be an option. That's why I blacked out last night. What is any of the last 3 months then? Don't you have some kind of evil plan? Or are you trying to remake the world or something like that? All I want to do is keep everything the same. I just want to stay in my mediocre apartment, work my mediocre job, stay in this mediocre city, and live my mediocre life. But I don't want to kill a bunch of kids to do it. I don't want to kill anyone. But someone's killing so many people, erasing them from existence, and I know that if I just kill you and all of your persona pals, that would stop everything. But it's just so miserable. Hearing all of that, Stallion slumped against the wall, taking a moment to process all of it, and ultimately responded with, I cannot stress enough. I hate fighting. I think it's stupid. I think it's creepy how much Aki enjoys swinging around his sword in a blood frenzy. And honestly, it's terrifying how Felicia slings her guns with so much ease. The way I see it, you don't want to fight. I don't want to fight. Why don't we not fight? Besides, you know way more about this persona crap than any of us. And you're at a breaking point. I think. My guess was, like, you're trying to reach out. So, alright, I'll take that hand. Let's do this. Partnership. No threats. You in? Yes, I'm in. Listen, I just need the bugs. I know the blonde kid has them. I know you've lied to my face every time I mention them as Jester. I just couldn't bring myself to call you all out. But with them, we can flip the whole thing on the world. We can kill them with the bugs. I don't know how to explain it with words, but if you can get me the bugs... No. If you can get the bugs, I can show you how to use them to end all this persona crap. Nice. But, I gotta ask, why did you make us go through the dungeons for you? Like, you're way stronger than us. It's pretty simple. I've got a full-time job. Can't go gallivanting around a dungeon for 10 hours straight. So I made you kids do it. even threatened you all despite how empty they were, which, yeah, that wasn't right.
Ah, yeah. Yeah, that checks out.
Returning to the dorms in the morning, Stallion and the rest of the cast went to school, where for the most part Stallion's player tried to figure out the best way to relay this information to the party. Because out of game for that whole conversation with Aaron, I took Stallion's player into a separate VC. So all the context the party had was Aaron is Jester, but their characters didn't know that. Stallion takes the day to decompress, and after school decides to pay a visit to Old Man Winchester, the man on the light post. He figured that this place was at least always quiet, so it makes sense to go here. But to his surprise, after an hour of sitting and looking wistfully at the sea, the old man decided to start speaking for the first time.
I have a son. Had a daughter at one point too. She ain't around no more. But my son, I still see him around sometimes. Often, he looks like you. Got that same look in your eyes. Like you got the weight of the world on your shoulders. It ain't my place to say, but whatever's on your mind, it ain't right to let it linger. Faster act sooner before later, lest you want everything to fall apart around you.
At being given his first dialogue from Old Man Winchester across the entire campaign, Stallion elected to remain silent. Meanwhile, Leonidas returned home immediately and continued his experiments. He wanted some way to recreate the dungeons that formed each month and to understand what created them. To that end, he kept exposing the luck locus in his possession to various sounds, as he had learned from Nathan that Jester employed a bell to create dungeons. He was able to see that certain sounds caused the locust to react by altering reality on a very small scale, such as distorting the colors around them, resulting in his entire room turning purple. As for everyone else, Aki continued to just be a high school doofus who was over the moon about having a girlfriend. He didn't do much, just hung out with Skye, and Desmond was their third wheel. But hey, playing laser tag with 3 people is more fun than playing laser tag with 1 person. So it worked out. And then there was Felicia, who decided to pay a visit to Verlyn, the Magician Arcana, for some big chess time. At first it was very ordinary, but took a very sudden shift when Verlyn asked, "Do you think your parents love you? What? Do they care? Do they think about you? Why are you saying? You just seem the type, that's all. The type where I don't think they'd answer any of your phone calls, unless... Do they?" Felicia had no response. In the past 3 months in Downpour, her parents had never once returned her text or phone calls. How unexpected. Color me shocked. Ding 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 ding. Rank you up! Felicia ranked up with Verlyn and went back to the dorms. She had a date with Officer Amelia that night and needed to prepare. To that end, she resolved to create the perfect date and roped in the entire cast to help out, getting Stallion to procure a private yacht, getting Leonidas to analyze Amelia to determine what kind of food she would like, having Aki and Desmond guard for the whole affair, just to ensure that nothing bad happened, and then getting Skye to direct Amelia to the private yacht. Because a few days ago, Felicia said it was going to be a dinner at a nice restaurant. It also wasn't a date until a few days ago. A lot of planning went into this. I even had to, on the spot, find a boat map for the date. All things considered, it was actually a pretty good night that went off without a hitch, despite Amelia being thoroughly confused by all of it. And the food was quite enchanting. Money can buy things. So by the end of the meal, it had been a pretty great night, leaving Felicia and Amelia to just talk. While Stallion looked over them with a face of relief, the night was a success. I I really hope you enjoyed tonight, Amelia. I put in a lot of effort into this.
I did. Tonight's definitely gonna be a night I'll remember.
Well, in that case, would you like to do it again? But as like an actual thing, you know? As like a couple? Well, no, not at all. Oh, Felicia, I am so not sorry. I was humoring you.
I was humoring you.
At those cruel words, everything went silent, and Felicia's world went crashing down. At no point did she ever have a chance with Amelia. Felicia, the girl who was used to having everything at her fingertips, was met by something she could never obtain. All of that effort was for nothing. Have you heard about the Einstein files? Cut to Stallion, who upon hearing that, made a break for it. He wanted nothing to do with whatever crash out was to follow. Which did ensue as Felicia broke out into tears and Amelia did her best to verbally comfort her, allowing the rest of the night to pass as Felicia, ding 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 ding, rank-u up, reached rank 8 with Officer Amelia of the Temperance Arcana, acquiring the following skill: Let me humor you, allowing Felicia to negotiate with down shadows in quick succession on her turn. I'm so proud of her. Come the next day, Felicia wasn't feeling too hot and trudged through the day. After school, Felicia tried to, in vain, call her parents. They did not pick up. Stallion mainly avoided her, so those two, plus Desmond and Aki, lived uneventful days, while Leo, on the other hand, skipped school to stay home because he received a call. You see, in order to create the super fighting robot Esri, Leonidas needed to... Actually, hold up. Cooler looking Zamen here. What is about to happen next, I have no idea what the impetus for it was. I really don't. I did not arrange any of what you are about to see. You see, Leonidas arranged a deal where he would sell off Esri for $100 million. Or something like that. However, Leonidas didn't want to do that. But he did want to keep the money. So after school, he explained the situation to everyone and asked that they help him in keeping Esri and stealing the money. Naturally, everyone agreed. However, if you'll notice, Felicia is not here. She arrived late, right when the scheme was going down and everyone was deciding their roles. Hearing that some kind of plan was being formed, Felicia immediately asked how could she help, only to be told no by Leonidas. He did not allow Felicia any part in this and demanded she leave, which uncharacteristically Felicia did, leaving the dorm without any fuss and spending the rest of the night in an expensive apartment trying to make her parents pick up. They did not pick up. Oh, and Skye wasn't here. She was out doing her own thing, but Leonidas didn't mind because this was going to be a boys-only mission. Plus, he was super misogynist. Plan prepared, Leo stuffed Esri into a big, movable box cart thing and took her into a back alley where he proceeded to sell her off to a pair of men in black, receiving a suitcase full of $100 million in cash. Despite my efforts to make the transaction wireless, the men in black took their leave, hopping in a black truck and starting to drive off. But they were pursued by a lone, borrowed motorcycle, ridden by the masked vigilante Fall and his new sidekick, Man-Bag. The pair then smashed through the back of the truck with a kickflip, enabling Fall and Man-Bag to take hold of the box containing Esri, with Fall dragging it out of the truck while Man-Bag dealt with the men in black. using his bike to U-turn kickflip in the air and smash through the truck's windows to take down the men in black with motorcycle foo, sending them sprawling onto the pavement. From there, Man-Bag drove off while Fall dragged Ezri's box into a back alley where the box was then picked up by Stallion in a rental car and then driven back to the party's aircraft hangar, rewarding the party with an Ezri and $100 million that was split amongst the boys, with Felicia seeing none of it. And all that money really did enable the party to just do about anything. But more on that later. As once the plan had gone up without a hitch, the party relaxed and Stallion decided to take this opportunity to reveal to the party that he would be collaborating with Jester. But he made sure to obscure Aaron's identity, namely because the characters could at this point just plan out an assassination on Aaron, and that would not be great. Stallion then proceeded to ask Leonidas for at least one of the bugs so that they can try and talk to Jester about this. But, well, Leo said no, despite having like 4 luck locusts, and decided to instead sequester himself away from the party and return to his room by himself. Aki, meanwhile, he was against it too because, as he said, Jester is a murderer. In Aki's eyes, Jester had killed 16 people and turned them into jokers. How else would he get the jokers? Desmond was more confused than anything as he thought Jester was the bad guy. Stallion is naturally frustrated by this and comes up with a new plan. Just steal the luck locust from Leo. So he calls up Aaron and tells him tomorrow night that he'll distract Leo and get him to come out of his room. And Aaron can then break in and steal one of the locusts to then show everyone what's up. Aaron wasn't too fond of the idea, but he decided to trust Stallion, sending Stallion his home address so Stallion could take everyone there once he got the bug. I should also mention that Stallion's frustration in the party at that moment did cause something inside of him to... It was just the lack of anyone's willingness to hear him out, the feeling that his voice didn't matter. It crossed into this rage and emotion that Stallion decided to bottle up, shoving that side of himself all the way down and refusing to acknowledge it. To be clear, this is set up for Stallion getting a dungeon of his own, and eventually evolving his persona. Back to game now. The next day passed as Aki and Desmond did stuff while Stallion decided to just comfort Felicia about the whole ordeal with, Amelia and her crushed romantic aspirations, along with the misogyny for leaving her out of the Ezri heist, which, it took a while, but the process ended up fine. They were fixed, Felicia was more or less back to normal, and then Stallion and Felicia just went to go hang out at the movie theater, which went on all night, resulting in Jester arriving at the dorms without Stallion's support, and what transpired in Leo's room that night ultimately resulted in the creation of a dungeon. Leo's dungeon. It was discovered the very next day, when Stallion remembered that he didn't call off the scheme with Aaron, and now Aaron wasn't picking up his calls. So he rushed into Leo's room to see what happened, but upon opening the door was met by a blinding light. Gathering the rest of the party, plus Skye, the next objective became clear. It was time for Operation Save Leo from the Hell Dimension, and thus they all ran through the door and found themselves on a spaceship. Hiya, cooler looking Zamen here. I want to go over a few things about this dungeon that made it unique. Number 1, it's in space, so by default every ranged attack has infinite range. But the attacks end up being delayed and require ricocheting and arranging correct angles. Nuclear attacks also deal electric damage and are considered a dual type, whatever that means. Fire, of course, cannot burn without an atmosphere, and lingering AoEs are basically null. And then, because this dungeon was a small solar system that looks something like this, we had to follow these rules for solar system movement. The innermost circle, not Earth atmosphere, which is the circle of the small area around the Earth, should move objects, players, enemies, obstacles counterclockwise by half a revolution per action. The second innermost circle, 1/4 of a revolution cc, the third innermost circle by 1/8 of a revolution cc, The outermost circle should move objects clockwise by 1/8 of a revolution. Outer circle moves by 1/16 of a revolution per action. Inner circle moves by 3/8 of a revolution per action. There were a few more rules about momentum and spaceship movement, but it's hardly relevant for this retelling. I just want you to know how many things there were to keep in mind while traversing this place. Actually, there's one more rule I need to go over. Ahem. Bless and curse attacks do not exist in this dungeon, as Leonidas is an atheist and non-believer in magic and religion. We almost lost the almighty magic type too, but I lied good enough to keep it. Yes, I had to lie a bit and use some persuasion, because I did not create this dungeon. The creator of this dungeon was Leo's player. For this dungeon, Leo's player was the GM, and I was Skye as a player for the duration of it. Which, truthfully, not a very good idea. The reason why it was a poor choice was because of poor balancing. But not in the way you're thinking of it, because you have to understand that Leo's player is like an actual rocket scientist. A lot of the mechanics introduced here are just things he thinks about on a daily basis. But the rest of the players, me included, don't have a window into rocket science, not even the basics. So a lot of those mechanics didn't stick, and were really just a big hassle. And these mechanics, while cool, did have the secondary effect of greatly weakening Desmond and completely muzzling Felicia, as those two characters used curse and bless attacks, so their main damage type was gone, and the projectile rolls resulted in Felicia's gun attacks being kinda worthless, since, well, Leo's player was also controlling the enemies, so a lot of the time if Felicia tried to do something smart, yeah, the enemies would very easily counter it, or avoid it. So, yeah, the gun was kinda useless. I've been cooler, Zamen. Back to game. Again. Actually, wait. If you did enjoy this video, then consider subscribing, or leaving a like, maybe even a comment. Your choice. That'd be pretty cool. Now, back to game thing for real. In their spaceship, the party bounced around various little planets and satellites trying to find a way to reach the Earth in the center, that was protected by a security system that would basically annihilate the party's spaceship unless it was disabled via various control centers. So there was a lot of exploring that happened over the course of like the next 3 sessions, where the vibe changed from start to finish. At the start, the party was doing really well. They cleared a lot of areas, they were doing a solid job at navigating, they made use of the zero gravity stuff and the ricocheting stuff. Felicia suffered, yes, but it wasn't that bad. And while Desmond was initially limited by the effects of the dungeon, he just started relying more on his weapon, the war crime. And beyond combat, the dungeon also had several social situations that needed to be resolved. For instance, on one particular planet, the party needed to halt the rise of Adonis Himmler by defeating him in debate-based combat. The party also needed to contend with Leo's past, first resolving the regrets of the lingering spirit of Lucia, who had perished in the dorm swimming pool about a month ago, mainly because their player got really busy, and, well, for this whole thing, I called Lucia's player at like 11 PM and they showed up and we gave them no context whatsoever. Somehow they were able to quell Lucia's regrets, and then convince Adonis Himmler that politics suck and he should invest in something like crypto. From there, the party spaced over to a satellite that was orbiting the Earth, which turned out to be the dungeon manifestation of a real-life surveillance satellite that Leonidas had access to. Where within it detailed the life of Leonidas back in Canada, where he's the heir of the men of the lighthouse, a secretive organization that controls the world from the shadows. And the surveillance satellite also had footage of the rest of the cast's lives, like footage of a seedy club in Shibuya, Japan for Aki, an illustrious manor in France for Stallion, and footage of Felicia's criminal family back in Australia with a big button nearby that would just execute every single one of them if they were ever to become a concern. Normal stuff. Meanwhile, Desmond and Skye had no such surveillance since both of them were loser orphans who weren't even millionaires. Regardless, the party, after learning of this information, started feeling a lot less motivated to saving Leonidas, and their patience began to wear thin, and soon enough, when they reached more situations where they had to talk, the party would instead choose violence. Made most clear when they arrived at this miniature planet. Here, the planet was so small that the party would just loop around when they went one direction. The planet also housed a low gravity, so super jumps were pretty sick. On this planet, there was a control center where the party needed to sneak into it to disable it. But they didn't want to do that, so instead they launched a frontal assault, causing numerous demons and mechanical drones to start attacking them. And I mean, a lot. This was pretty bad, but the party did a decent job at holding them off, and when things got too dire, I had Skye use the move Nova Kaiser to decimate a large portion of enemies with its time stop effect, just to give the party some breathing room. It was one of the few times I had to use that move, and it was mainly there as a bit of a counter in case the dungeon was too strong. Before the party reached the control room, there was this big building, and inside of it they found a safe space, a location in the dungeon that allowed them the ability to leave. But as they approached, Jester appeared, having come in from the outside world, and on sight, before he could react, Aki threw him into some nearby woods where a frantic struggle began. Jester summoned his persona, Dagda, and used wind magic to produce a series of strong gales that prevented people from reaching him. However, Aki, in conjunction with Desmond, concocted a plan. Both used Jester's wind to propel themselves into the air, and with the planet's low gravity and small size, they started generating speed by making laps around the planet. Aki, after about 2 of them, made enough speed to break through Jester's gales and restrain the man in a full Nelson. While holding him, Aki demanded to know what Jester did to Stallion, and Jester responded by telling him that they had come to an agreement. But any attempts by Jester to elaborate were stifled by Aki just yelling out a bunch of profanities. Aki then used his teeth to bite down on Jester's mask and pull it off, revealing him to be Aaron Sheffield, the detective Aki was learning from. However, this discovery would be overshadowed by an approaching Desmond who, unlike Aki, was still in the air. Building up speed, lap after lap, he went around the planet dozens, maybe even 100 times, until eventually he was so fast that he was nothing more than a single blurred line. At which point, he then angled himself into Jester like a missile, approaching with a speed of around 100,000 kilometers per hour. Under the weight of the mathematics of a rocket scientist, Jester was then reduced to a red stain.
You never see it coming. You see that my mind is too fast for eyes. You're done.
While Aki and Desmond were reduced to a single HP, as they both possess endure abilities that prevent any one attack from knocking them out if they had half or more of their HP. Hiya, Zamen here. I just want to say that as the GM, getting my false antagonist in Jester murdered mid-dungeon, when he was just starting to cook, really sucked. It was worse because the economy was thoroughly in shambles due to my players becoming multi-millionaires from an event I did not plan. Same with Jester's death being in a location where I wasn't in control. Yes, I had Jester appear, but I couldn't anticipate this kind of instant kill. Add on to the fact that him appearing caused hundreds or thousands of drones in the dungeon to activate, in an effort to shoot him, which I think is just a bit excessive. Either way, we can only keep moving forward. So back to the story. Covered in the blood of another man, Aki could do little but scream. Felicia likewise is shocked, having only seen all of it transpire from afar. She didn't think Aki or Desmond was capable of that. While Stallion's player is beyond frustrated, as the development he was building up for Stallion was thoroughly ruined. I mentioned earlier that the groundwork for Stallion getting a dungeon was being set up, but this event kinda threw a wrench into how that would develop, as that dungeon was kinda based around Jester, cause, you know, Stallion's not working with Jester, so that would then influence how the dungeon would look. But yeah, with Jester dead, that dungeon is kinda just super very dead and not happening anymore. Yeah. And it's made worse by the fact that Stallion's player had actually drawn this dungeon for the party to venture through later. It is so unlucky. Oh yeah, and because Jester appeared, there were literally still thousands of drones swarming the place, so the party decided that we don't want to deal with this, so they just left and decided to come back later. Where collectively, everyone kinda just decompressed. Over the next 2 days, no one really did any actions besides talking to each other and simple stat boosting. Killing a man, even if he was their perceived enemy, surprisingly weighed a lot on everyone's mind. Except Desmond. Desmond had no care or deep thoughts whatsoever on the topic, because he was under the assumption that Jester was another demon, or another entity of the other world like the world. It is now Wednesday, December 10th, and after school, the party journeys back into Leo's dungeon, where security was still high after Jester's appearance, and at this point it was session 3, and the party really didn't want to do another round of astrophysics battles, so they said screw it and decided that instead of turning off the last security system, they would just barrel through and land on the central planet to engage Leo directly. It did not go well. The drones that appeared due to Jester, the drones were bad, and it was worse when they tried to fly past the remaining security system, because despite it being the only one left, it absolutely decimated the ship's HP, just murdered it, and it was faster than the ship too, so there was no hope of ever outrunning it, resulting in, you guessed it, the ship being absolutely shredded. But in an act of sheer brilliance and desperation, Desmond dug into his pockets and used the copious amounts of cheese he had acquired earlier from a public auction, using that cheese to patch up the holes in the ship as they were being destroyed, allowing the party to just barely make it to the central planet, arriving at the base of a rocket ship launch pad, where before them loomed a massive hangar. Sensing their presence, the hangar doors slowly opened and revealed Leonidas' new form as Metatron, a super-powered mech controlled by Leonidas from within. The mech was armed to the teeth, complete with missiles, guns, and just a lot of physical strength, even dozens of drones to assist it. But it also had a gravity generator, a device that could activate and deactivate gravity at will, which proved very effective later. With that explained, Metatron enabled gravity and ran out of the hangar like a footballer, man, making a beeline for Desmond. However, the party took the opportunity to rain down numerous ranged attacks on him, though the damage was minimal as Leonidas possessed a shield generator that halved the damage. Once he reached Desmond, Metatron simply raised his mechanical foot to crush the high schooler, but as the foot touched down, Aki dove forward and proceeded to bench press. It was a standstill. Metatron's foot was gaining ground and Aki was buckling. His back couldn't take it. But that's where Desmond stepped in, ripping off his shirt and providing aid to Aki by lifting with his back in a sudden jerking motion, allowing the pair to overpower the mech and send it sprawling onto the floor. Stallion and Felicia took the opportunity to climb onto it and start ripping out mechanical chunks, disabling the shield generator. Meanwhile, Skye summoned a new persona, Parvati, to heal the party. As everyone was currently withstanding the onslaught of Leo's drones. Still knocked over, Metatron released an electric pulse that shocked Felicia and Stallion into paralysis, leaving Aki and Desmond to once again bring the fight to Metatron. Aki summoned his sword Atlas again and again to parry Metatron's ward, while Desmond, armed with his war cram, used it to gradually melt through the mech's legs and render it unable to walk. Felicia and Stallion eventually got back up, deciding that since Aki and Desmond were doing fine, they would focus on clearing the drones, with Felicia dealing with many of them due to her sling gun skill, while Stallion did the smart thing and just cast his AoE spell, Magarudyne, to wipe out a large portion of the masses, much more efficiently than Felicia. However, Metatron was still Leonidas and he hated being mollywopped, so he quickly deactivated the gravity generator and brought the battle to 0G, using a jetpack on his mech to orient, while preventing the party from getting their bearings. His main target was Desmond, as for whatever reason, Leonidas was perceiving Desmond as the now deceased Jester. The party tried to object, but the zero-gravity effects more or less rendered Aki's physical attacks null, and the rest of the party couldn't really aim their attacks to hit Leonidas. However, Felicia got it the worst, as she was utterly obliterated by a barrage of her own bullets that Leo ricocheted back at her. As the fight starts to take a turn for the worse, something strange happens. Desmond sneezes and starts to glow ever so slightly, causing fortune to shift in his favor. Leonidas' gravity generator sputters and comes to life, returning gravity, and Metatron, without robot legs, falls, crumbling to the ground, and the party descend upon it like savage beasts, ripping and tearing at the metal to pry it off, ripping Leonidas out of the mech and letting Aki beat down the Brainiac. Sending him to the floor where the rest of the party finished the job. The party dragged his body back to the real world and chucked it in the living room, letting the super fighting clanker Ezri take care of him. Probably should have brought her along for that. They couldn't actually put Leonidas in his room because it was still in dungeon mode. Skye had to remind the party that while they got Leo out, the dungeon was still being maintained by whatever big bad boss demon had latched onto it. She even offered to go and clear out the boss demon on her own over the weekend, but the party said nah, it's better to go together. They just need to schedule a dungeon run accordingly. With that set up, the party went and collapsed on their beds, thoroughly exhausted. Bringing us to Thursday, December 11th, where Leo spent the day unconscious recovering from the whole ordeal, and the party had more than a few excuses to make up to his girlfriend Leah, who had been, well, wondering why her boyfriend was missing for the past, 4 days. Thankfully, the party had Felicia, who lies to women, always. The party went about their days grateful for this mundanity, but there were a few ramifications from the last round of dungeoning. For starters, Detective Aaron, aka Jester, he was gone. His entire existence. There was no trace of him. No one ever recalled a detective by that name. Officer Amelia, who worked with the guy, had never heard of him. And most peculiar of all, Amelia had no recollection of ever going on a date with Felicia. And there was one more casualty from Aaron's erasure. Old Man Winchester, the Tower Arcana, was also nowhere in sight. He was gone, but not forgotten. As thanks to some investigative work from Stallion, we heard a story about an old man named Winchester who 25 odd years ago drowned in the waters near Downpour City in an effort to try and save his daughter, with many regretting that if anyone else was there on that day, he likely would have been saved. It was a great tragedy, and the man's wife, Mrs. Sheffield, moved as far away as she could from this tragedy. Yeah, Aaron was Old Man Winchester's son, and there's no way anyone ever would have seen that coming, because while I did write it at the very start of the campaign, I put no effort in actually developing that by having Old Man Winchester never talk to Stallion, for literally no reason. Let's talk about Desmond. He was having a great day, actually. He kept finding money on the floor, all of his classes had substitutes, and he seemed to have an uncanny amount of luck with his social link friends. And then, as he was walking out of school, he watched a random student get absolutely destroyed. I mean, like, eviscerated by this motorcycle. Like, oh my god, it was so violent. Horrified by that sight, Desmond ran home, taking the train only to find that every train except his was delayed. In short, Desmond's luck was out of control. So he held up in his room out of hope that this whole thing would just blow over and be gone in a day. It wasn't. Friday came and Leo awoke feeling better than ever with a clearer head. Seeing this, the party elected to skip school for that day because something was up with Desmond and dealing with Leo was definitely more important. For starters, Leo apologized for subjecting everyone to his thick, girthy, and succulent mind. And also apologizing for investigating the insects on his own without telling anyone. The party was less than pleased by this lack of trust. If he was gonna create a dungeon, or if he was at least working on that, he likely should have let them know ahead of time. That's a common courtesy. What kind of person would just impose on everyone else's day for their own desires? Leo then explained that he's not fully at fault for creating the dungeon, as a few nights ago when he was sleeping, he was awoken by the sound of Jester, somehow appearing in his room. But the Jester was equally startled by Leo's presence, causing him to fall backwards, which then caused reality to distort and shift at the sound of a ringing bell that came from Jester. When reality distorted, the Luck Locust reacted and started to multiply, becoming a swarm in seconds that consumed Leo's room, blinding the place with white light and signaling the birth of Leo's dungeon. Stallion, knowing why Jester was there in the first place, doesn't say anything, doesn't explain it. He's still pretty pissed about everything that's transpired, so allowing Leonidas to continue talking as he explained what else he remembers from his dungeon, as he's got a bit of clarity when it comes to that. Unlike Nathan or Noah, he surmises that it might be a combination of having a persona, also the fact he's a protagonist. That helps too. Leo then begins, claiming to have seen Mastema acting unopposed within his dungeon, watching the angel plant clusters of cocoons that would grow into luck locusts, while repeating an invocation, grow and spread, bleed the worlds into one, grow, the day of misfortune fast approaches, grow, let the champion of man guide your actions by my desire, grow. Champion of man? So, Mastema must have been working with Jester, right? I mean, that makes sense. Jester rings the bell, creates the dungeon, and then Mastema starts farming bugs. That sounds logical, yes. We need to find that bell. Since his name is Aaron Sheffield, it shouldn't be too difficult to locate where he lives using the police rec. He's been wiped from existence. We won't find anything there. I know where he lives, or, well, used to, I guess. We can go after this weekend. Maybe it'll be there, maybe not. I don't care. Ah, I see. This persona business only gets stranger. Tell me about it, I'm literally cursed. What's that supposed to mean? Look, Felicia, just try and punch me. Felicia tried to give Desmond a small nudge, but as she reached her arm out, Desmond sneezed, avoiding her assault, and suddenly a ventilation grate from above fell on Felicia's head. See? Bad things keep happening to people around me. My luck's been top-notch. Like, I got so many 5 stars on my polls all day. There's something wrong with me. It might be because you killed Jester. He was all about collecting those bugs, and, well, you killed him while he was holding the lucky bugs. At least, that's my guess. So, what if all the power from those bugs are now in you? 'Cause, like,
What else is luck related and out of this world? We really don't have many options for what could, like, curse you.
Okay, how do we fix that? I need ideas, guys. Cause this crap's gonna affect you guys too.
Well, what can we do, guys? Come on, think. I'll be back. Give me like 10 minutes.
Skye, where are you? Hold up, I'll go with you.
Stay. I said I'll be back.
Wait, but okay. Now this may sound insane, but I'll continue nonetheless.
Let's say yes, Desmond's current condition is inherited from Jester.
Due to killing him. So the easiest way to remove that curse is to give it to someone else. I'm not dying, Leo. Yes, that would be preferred. I am suggesting that we instead kill something attached to you. Something that likely wants to use all that
Luck, bug, energy. Oh, so like the demon that's still in your dungeon, Leo. We let that thing gobble Desmond up and then we go beat up Demon Desmond and kill that instead. It's merely conjecture, but well, all of this is conjecture.
You all saw how well my efforts and studying these things went. May as well try. Is that really all we can do? Fine, sure. Let's do that, but we gotta be quick. In fact, let's just do it right now. Get it over with. Everyone disliked that suggestion, namely for one reason. They all had lives and really wanted to do some of that slice of life stuff like build up their social links, making everyone hesitant. Thus, a lengthy amount of debate happened, and it was eventually decided that they would enact this dungeon plan on December 15th, just a few days so the party could get their affairs in order. Desmond wasn't particularly thrilled, but he was still glad for the help, and respectfully agreed to hold out for as long as he could. And then Skye walked in and tossed a paper insect cage at Desmond. Yo, D-Man. I talked to Igor and he gave me that. Said as long as you keep it near, it would stop your bad luck from leaking out for like a week. So, problem procrastinated. Desmond accepted the cage and silently went back to his room. Everyone then spent the rest of their days building up their social links. Like Aki, for instance, hung out with the college girl Mira,
And apologized for stealing her bike and using it to attack the government.
which was one hell of a story to explain, but at the very least, Mira was very anti-establishment, so it went over well. Stallion aimlessly wandered and met this dude named Austin, who apparently turned out to be the Strength Arcana. He's also from Australia. And they started dating. And Felicia tried to talk to the new altered Officer Amelia, and found her to be much the same, just a bit crueler and less upbeat. Leo meanwhile concocted several lies to feed to his girlfriend Leah about his absence, and it mostly went over well, lying for the win. Ending the day, those same actions continued into night, allowing us to move on to the next day. Saturday, December 13th. When the party awoke, they discovered a video message in the group chat. It was of Desmond, walking towards the door of the dungeon, and there was nothing they could do to stop him, as he entered and created a dungeon, sabotaging everyone's plans and bringing this chapter to an end. Jester is dead and the game is in a spiral. What's even gonna happen now? Honestly, a lot. But that will have to wait. Once again, I'm doing that thing where I break a month into 2 parts. I was originally gonna cover all of December because a lot of stuff in late December will get breezed over, but this part is too long and it has already killed my channel for 3 weeks. So I'd like to not extend to another year since making videos is fun. Meaning, you're getting a 2-parter. Enjoy it. Though, at the very least, the next installment of Persona SC is already written, as the script I'm using for this video is half of it. And that's a good thing because writing the script is what takes the longest part of the video process here at Zamen Productions. So you can expect that next part in like a month or two.
So while you're waiting, maybe go and check out the previous parts of the series. Or just watch my videos. Those are good ideas, I promise. And I should mention that I'm sorry for the differing audio quality. While editing this video, I learned how my mic actually works, and therefore, my next uploads are gonna sound a whole lot better. Yay!
Until then, I will go back to posting weekly, which should be fun as Emily is coming soon. With that in mind, consider sticking around if you don't hate my voice. My sole goal here is to improve my writing, editing, and speaking as I go on. Goodbye.